welcome to today's CX Quick Tips. I've got my good old friend Diane Majors on with me. Diane, hello and welcome.
Hey, Jim, thanks so much. Great to be here today.
Now today, now all these CX Quick Tips, we only talk for about 10 minutes to give you hopefully some good insights that you can act upon. And today we're talking about how everybody designs excellent customer experiences, right? I mean, everybody, that's our intent, right? We don't intentionally go out there and try to deliver bad. So how is it that everybody really designs excellent customer experiences?
Well, what I love to talk about is really to give examples. So we all have had experiences where we know they haven't been designed, right? They're just been a Band-Aid, or somebody said, hey, we're going to try this, but it doesn't really work that well for us. Well, that means that somebody didn't actually think about it and be intentional about the experience I was going to have, nor did they test it out and figure out how it was going to fit in my life. So my whole mantra behind everybody designs is all about, I don't care if you're on the front line or you're an executive or you're a salesperson, every single conversation you have, every decision, every script has to be designed with that customer in mind. How are they going to receive it? How's it going to make them feel? What's it going to do for them? What value is it going to create for them? And with that intention comes a lot of, hey, we really do understand what we're trying to create and what that experience is going to be like and what behavior it's going to drive from the customer. Whether they come back, they talk to us more, all of those different things.
And you and I had this discussion before we started broadcasting, but in theory, that sounds very simple and easy to do because I have to make some assumptions that all customers are going to be delighted by the exact same process, procedure, design, all of those things, and that's just not true, right?
No, it's not. And when you think about what design thinking really is, it's a human-centered approach to understand what that person needs and what they expect and what's going to create value for them. And so that ability for us to stand in and say, hey, you know what, if somebody goes online and they're texting with us, SMS, it's going to be much different if it's me or my 20-year-old daughter. The way that we interact, the way that we speak, the way that we have to think about who actually is on the other side of this experience we're creating, this interaction we're creating, this conversation, this product. Because if we don't think through those things using a human-centered design basis of what's the human need and how do we understand it, then we can think about how we design all those experiences to be different. And I think to your point about, how do you do this? Design is really a mindset, but it's also a set of tools and techniques. So building the muscle around thinking differently, but also giving your teams techniques and tools and education around what are some of the ways that we can do this better? What are some of the ways we can think about those needs and those different people who are interacting with our product or service?
Well, as you're saying that, I'm starting to, think that, reality is there's, a dedication that needs to really take place in order for organizations to do that. Because for many of us, especially right now, when you start looking at the marketplace and you start looking at skilled labor, you start hitting all these, different factors, is everybody's just working. I'm not designing, I'm doing. So what are the potential pitfalls of that?
I think the pitfalls of continually doing is that you're not creating something that's going to meet the needs. You're not being intentional about how your brand or product shows up. So if you think about Apple, they're a very design-centric organization. They know exactly what your experience is going to be like. Who's ever called an Apple support line? You might go into the Genius Bar, but even that's designed. So I think part of the pitfalls that we run into is that people think design is this big thing and it belongs to somebody sitting in the corner with a Mac computer and their crazy hair designing something. It's not. It's a mind shift. It's the ability for the organization to stop just finding and fixing and really backing up and saying, what are we really trying to create? What's the need we're trying to fulfill? And are we aligned across the organization? That's the other big pitfall, is designing in a vacuum and not thinking about the entire experience end to end and top to bottom is one of the pitfalls I see all the time. Yeah, we can design this, but we're doing it in our own little bubble. And we need to be thinking more holistically. And that creates a good network in your organization. That's one of the other pitfalls. that people are not connected in an organization to really take care of designing a great experience. So it's seamless, holistic, and informed.
Well, I think the other thing, because it kind of, as you're talking about this, I also start thinking about legacy systems, digital transformation. I start thinking about all these things that are going on for organizations, and an experience that a customer was having that they became, habit to, now has to change because, we're having to do some of these other things in order to enable, either, process automations, maybe even artificial intelligence capabilities, be able to connect, maybe because we've had an acquisition or a merger, different data systems, different products and services. And so now when I start thinking about all of that, the experience that somebody once had is now not the same experience, but it's going to get to something better. But there's this interim period of now I'm dealing with all these complaints, I'm dealing with all these issues, and how do we sort through all of that and move forward?
Well, that's why I love it. It's a good indication that something hasn't been intentionally designed. So to your point about finding those things and going and just fixing them, and especially when you're doing digital, I always talk about digital being, we're doing digital for digital's sake, when we really should be thinking about and designing the experience first and then enabling it with digital so that we know what the outcome of that design is going to be, what the intended experience should be, and how we're going to bring that to digital. But we've thought through where will the customer fall off? What's a rainy day scenario? Like, we sometimes design things in digital that we just assume a human will behave a certain way. And that's not how it works. We've got to care for those rainy day scenarios and really think through all the different types of people, the different channels they like to use, what happens if something goes wrong, so we avoid all of those issues that we would see. So that intentional design can actually make your products and service launches much more streamlined, holistic, and reduce a lot of the, oh, we forgot to think about this approach, I call it.
Well, as you're saying that, I also start thinking about, being adaptable. So if I do have, different customer segments that, is it even possible for, one to have a certain experience versus another? Like for me, I see this more clearly as I've gotten older, and, I have a father who has, some eyesight, issues, and now can't, read and navigate, websites and things like that. And even when I start looking at companies that send him pieces of mail, it's, small font, and it's, he's struggling with that.
Yes, yes.
I think we have more complexities that are out there that when you start talking about adaptable and experience and engagement and all of that, I mean, the complexities just can be overwhelming.
It can be, but I think at least if you're going for the 80-20 rule of, hey, we're going to try to create as much as we can around this, you're always going to have those one-off scenarios. But what I find is they create, like, here's the path we want them to take, and we're going to design it this way. And they haven't thought through all those other permeations or variations of what might happen. That's where design thinking allows you to sit with the problem a little longer and find the right problem to solve. So rather than assuming you know what it is, design and design thinking techniques help you to do that in a different way so that you are more holistic, collaborative, intentional about what you're designing that experience to be like.
As you're talking, I start thinking about the thing that I always bring up that seems to be the death knell of delivering excellent customer experiences, and that's when somebody replies and says, well, I know I wouldn't like that. Are you your customer?
Just, and you're not everybody. That's the human side of this. Is why design thinking, human-centered design, that's why they call it that. It's thinking through that human, and in the end, we're all motivated by specific things in different ways. Our behavior's a little different, but the motivation and the need is usually there. It goes back to the old adage of, you don't really need a drill when you go to the hardware store. You need to put a hole in your wall to hang something. It's really, what is that need and intention? And once you understand that, then it becomes pretty easy to guide down the path and design it for that need, not here's the product we want people to buy.
Diane
Whole
Majors,
premise of design.
always a great conversation, and always given me something that I need to think a little bit differently upon, and I appreciate that. Diane, how do the CX Quick Tip listeners get in touch with you?
I am on LinkedIn. Do just spell the last name, Magers. You can find me there. Happy to carry on the conversation and appreciate the time, Jim. Thanks for letting me be a part of your show.
Oh, thank you. And Diane is also a frequent contributor to CX Global Media and our CX Quick Tips. And Diane, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom, and we wish you the very best.
Thanks so much. Talk to you soon.